Hello folks, this is Sula, and this is a commentary video on Final Fantasy V. This is the introduction for my variant group known as the Ironcore team. That consists of a variant made up of two things. First of all, no grinding for experience, gold, ability points. Just get to the end of the next dungeon, fight the boss, and go straight to the next one. Secondly, and more importantly probably, this group has one party life ever. When everybody dies, that's it. If I ever get the game over screen, I have to start over again from the beginning. So the challenge is to see if I can complete the entire game without dying. Now, for this group, I'm going to restrict some of the jobs that they use. I'm not going to use the overpowered jobs, such as the Samurai, Chemist, or the Hunter's X-Fight command. And what I'll be doing with this series of videos is going straight from one boss battle to the next. If you want to find out more info on this, you can see the link that I provided to my website, where I have a lot more info on what I've been doing with this group. So let's get started with the first boss, the Wind Raptor. There's not too much to say about this boss. The first one you fight in the game, you don't have any jobs yet, so you can't do a whole lot other than just attack. This is the standard first Final Fantasy boss where the boss will defend at one point and you're supposed to not attack in order to teach you about how the battle system works. But in this particular battle, I just kept attacking and ended up winning before any of that even happened. About the only comment that I have to make is for some reason the Wind Raptor didn't seem to like Gallop. Kept attacking him. Anyway, my characters keep attacking, and soon enough, the boss is dead. So, on to bigger and better things. The next boss up is Corlabos, which is the big red lobster at the end of the canal that you go through. Now, Corlabos is the bane of many of my solo variants. That is, when I play through the game with only one character. He has two different attacks, one called Tentacle, which paralyzes the character that gets hit, and then another one called Tentacle, which drops their hit points down to like 5 out of whatever, 5 or 10 roughly. So in other words, right to the point of death. That's a really bad combination for a solo character because if they're paralyzed, they can't do anything. You can't issue any commands, and you just sit around getting destroyed. But when in a party setting like this, it's not nearly as dangerous. For example, Bart's got paralyzed at the beginning of the battle, but I of course still have 3 other characters that can take actions. Now you can see from the scan that Corlabos is weak against lightning magic, so if you turn everybody into black mages, this is an incredibly easy battle. I thought that would be a little too cheap, so I'm sticking with a balanced party here. One of the things that's interesting is that in this battle, the monk actually does a lot more damage than the knight class. The monk often gets sort of a bad reputation online on Final Fantasy message boards, but in this battle at least, you can see the monk definitely does more damage than the knight class. Lightning magic continues to do the main damage in this fight, but Ferris gets in some of her licks too. And as I said, even though each of my characters got paralyzed at some point in time in this fight, I have the other 3 to pick up the slack. So, Corlabos, difficult boss for a solo character, not too difficult for a normal party setting. Okay, next up is Siren, the boss at the end of the ship graveyard. Siren has 2 different forms. She starts out in a human form, which mostly casts magic, and then she'll switch into an undead form that just attacks and does a lot more damage when attacking. So the trick is you want to use physical attacks against the human form. You don't want to use magic, it's not that effective. Then against the undead form, you want to use fire magic, or you can even cast cure spells, since the undead form is undead. It will take damage if you cast cure on it. One thing that I'll point out is right at the beginning of the battle, Bart gets hit with slow, and that really takes him out of most of this battle. You'll see he doesn't really do a whole lot. Points out just how strong the slow and haste spells are. Now, why did I attack with the 2 mages there? Well, like I said, magic doesn't do a whole lot against this human form. It has very high magic defense, so you might as well just attack. Not much point in casting magic here. I have Lena actually heal as the black mage here, because Gallop has a better weapon. He has the flail weapon, which does a lot more damage, so that's why I did it in that particular order. Once again, Ferris as a monk actually does a lot more physical damage in this fight. The knight really doesn't shine too much until the knight gets double grip as an ability, which won't happen until later. Now here what I did was de-equip Gallop of his flail weapon, and so that he could attack Lena with his fists and wake her up. Just a neat little trick that you can do. Here, because the boss is now shifted over to its undead form, I use build-up, which causes the monk to wait for a minute and then do double damage. It's useful against enemies that have high defense. And again, there you can see that fire magic does good damage against the undead form. But physical attacks really don't work that well. Even with build-up, Ferris only did 30 damage each, and you know, you can see Bartz does basically nothing as a knight here. So the way to stop this boss is to cast fire magic, and fortunately I have both mages can do that. So down goes Siren, and on to the next boss fight. One thing I'll point out here, yes, as everybody gets a whole bunch of ability points and opens up new abilities. One thing that you might have noticed is bosses in this game don't give experience or gold, they only give ability points. So something a little bit interesting. Now the next boss is Madras and Forza, who are at the top of the next dungeon, North Mountain. Madras uses pretty much just magic. She will attack occasionally, but she's mostly just magic only. She's relatively vulnerable to physical attacks, not especially so. Here I was trying to figure out what to do with Lena, and I probably should have just cast an attack spell instead of, you know, wasting it on a heal. That meant that Galef then attacked, and he didn't really do a whole lot. So, Madras' one dangerous spell in this battle is Drain, which she actually used there, but Drain isn't guaranteed to work. It has a chance of failing, and fortunately it missed there. Ferris got the double critical hits. She's using the Monk Sprawl command as her sub-ability here. So I was trying to figure out why it was that Lena was showing the, you know, down on her knees animation, and then I remembered that she starts the battle poisoned. So anyway, in comes Forza. I actually could have killed Madras before he even appeared if I had rushed a little bit sooner, but I did want the other guy to appear so he could show up in this video. I tried to use Flash against Forza, which inflicts darkness status, makes it harder for him to attack physically. The first one missed, but that just means I can try again. One thing that Forza is weak against is the sleep spell. If you cast sleep on him, you can successfully put him to sleep, which I did there. So now we'll try again with Flash, and fortunately it does work on the second try. So I am going to wait a second for the action bar to fill up for everybody, and then now go on the attack, now that all my characters can take an action. Lena's ice spell does much more damage than Galef's fire spell because she's got the ice rod, which increases damage by 50%. So those rods, do use them if you play this game and you're going to use black mages or summoners. Increases the damage by, like I said, by 50%, and it's pretty noticeable. Forza tries to attack, but he's been hit by Flash, so pretty hard to hit, so he misses that attack. I don't have anything really to do with Galef, everybody's healed up, so I just go ahead and start buffing with armor status, which increases your defense against physical attacks. Didn't work though, because Forza attacked Ferris instead, but soon enough we cast ice, and you know, that's it for him. So enough of that battle, and people get more job stuff, yay. On to the next one. The next fight is against this thing known as Galera. I don't really know how to describe this boss, just some kind of monster thing. This is the battle. After you win this one, you unlock some new jobs, so this will be the last one I cover in this video. Galera is an all-physical boss. He doesn't cast any spells, he just attacks over and over and over again. So if you have high armor, he actually can't really do any damage to you. The best way to stop a physical boss is hit him with Flash. That means that he won't be able to, he'll miss most of his attacks, won't hit on them. Now, Lena attacks Galef there because she has an item called the Healing Staff, which allows you to heal your characters by attacking them. It's one of the best items you can get in the early game. In the meantime, I'm not going to bother casting attack magic just yet. What I'll do is try to buff up my characters with armor status, reduce the damage that they're taking. So here goes Lena again, healing. What I'm doing with Ferris is just sort of screwing around with the boss as I wait and buff up everybody else with armor status. Galera actually can be turned into a frog. He can be turned into a little toad, so I'm screwing around with a blue spell called Frog Song. This isn't really necessary, but it's just kind of fun. So yep, there he is, turned into a little toad. Of course, Galera will turn himself back into his normal form with the toad spell, so doesn't really achieve a whole lot, except that it gives me the time to buff everyone with armor status, because if he's casting the toad spell, he's not attacking, which is all well and good. So just going to keep messing around with him a little bit more. Might as well turn him into a frog once again. And that time he actually missed on his Toad spell. It's not guaranteed to work, although it normally does. The funny thing though is that the little frog Galera actually has higher defense than the normal form Galera. So you'll see here when Bartz attacks, he actually does less damage against the frog. I have no idea why that is, but that turns out to be the case. And it's the same with Ferris. She isn't able to do much damage against the frog form. Now you might notice here, every single time that I hit Galera, after you get about a third of the way through the battle, he starts responding with counterattacks. So watch, every time that I hit this guy, he will actually respond and counterattack in turn. So watch, right here, I'll hit the boss with an ice spell, and then he responds with one attack, and he missed his second one. He isn't guaranteed to do two, but see, he'll attack once against Bartz and then once against Ferris. Now the problem with using a monk here, which means it's not necessarily the best idea, is he'll counterattack twice for each of the hits that you take. So look, there's 4 attacks there. The last one was something called Rush, which is a normal attack, as well as inflicting something called hit point leak status. So you can see Ferris's hit points are slowly counting down. If you look at the little hit point bar, it's pretty dangerous this early in the game. Later in the game, it's a non-issue when you have like thousands of hit points. So each time that I hit the boss, he usually counterattacks twice. But the good news is that those attacks don't really do anything due to the fact that everyone has armor status, and then the fact that everyone also is protected by the flash spell that I cast earlier. So do use that blue magic. It's pretty useful in a lot of these early battles. Along with white magic, the ability to heal up everybody, not too much danger here. So just keep attacking the boss until he goes down, which will happen eventually. Once again, I'm using the ice spell to attack because you find an ice rod relatively early in the game, and that means that it does more damage than the other black magic spells. So you might as well go with it. And finally, the boss goes down. After you defeat Galera, like I said, you unlock a couple more jobs, some useful ones like Summoner and Time Mage. Anyway, that takes us through the first video. Check back later. Thanks for listening.